Hello, it's John Heaton, and this evening I'm going to review the recently released John Lennon Imagine Ultimate Mix collection, which is available in several forms. And the first thing to say is I didn't splash out for the box. Well, firstly, it hasn't come to Hungary yet, and secondly, I don't think I'm going to get it, because I've just been thinking about how expensive these boxes are and how broke I'm going to be if I buy all of them. This one's a lot cheaper than, say, the Pepper box, and quite a bit cheaper than the upcoming White Album one. But I was very pleasantly surprised to see that all of the audio material from the 4 CDs in the box was made available immediately on Spotify. So I'm already subscribing to Spotify for like €8 a month, and I get this all for free, so I'm actually quite grateful to Yoko for saving me 60 or 70 quid. So I did pick up the CD because I saw that, and it's got the ultimate mix of the original album plus a whole 1 CD of demos. And I also saw the vinyl, but I thought, well, as I'll show you, I've got enough Imagine copies on vinyl without having to own a new one, I think, and I don't really need another book about the Beatles. I already own about 100, and you know, the nice photos. I saw the reviews of the Imagine box, and nice photos and nice book, but does it justify paying that money for the box? I don't know. I guess it's personal choice. Anyway, wasn't really the purpose of my review. I'm just going to show you before we get started, because I think it's more interesting to actually collect different versions of the Imagine album on vinyl from various parts of the world than actually to get the new box in a way. Anyway, so this is my original album, the UK pressing, signed by Yoko back in 1998 when I met her. I was lucky enough to meet her, and this is the new UK pressing, which came out a few years ago. And then, this is interesting, this is an Indian pressing, and just note the contrast in the shades here, from the greenish one of the UK one to this orangey glow of the Indian one. And then the Greek one is a blue shade. I think I showed some of these when I reviewed the album, but I just find that pretty fascinating, that this iconic cover is made available in 3 different colours, and also the Greek copy has the album on the Apple label, which obviously had John's face on most of the copies in the UK and the US, I think. So anyway, it's really nice to have those copies on vinyl. The first thing I'd say about this, the new mixes, the ultimate mixes as they're called, just sensational. And the 2010, or whenever it came out, the last mix was pretty damn good as well. And, you know, one wouldn't have thought there's much room for improvement, but I was hearing things and hearing instruments to the fore and Lennon's vocal more to the fore. Maybe the difference isn't huge, but they've done a really nice job. And perhaps it's more apparent, the job they've done, when you listen to all the outtakes and you listen to the way the songs were put together and how they gradually evolved, and I'll come to that in a minute. But before we discuss the Imagine album, or what's available on here, just want to say that there's a really interesting take of Power to the People without the horns and without the choir. Not without the horns, it has got the horn player on it, but it's not got that huge choir, and the production is not quite so overwhelming, so you can hear John's piano. I'd forgotten that he even played piano on Power to the People, so it's quite interesting. And I'd actually forgotten that Jim Gordon plays drums. So Jim Gordon, the drummer of Derek and the Dominos, of course, who would join Traffic the same year, 1971. So the lineup is Bobby Keys saxophone, Klaus Voormann bass, Jim Gordon drums, and John Lennon piano vocals. And that's just a storming version, and it really made me reappreciate the song. And I went back and played. There's a version of the finished version of Power to the People is on the first disc here. So it's an underrated track, and it really has, and it's timeless just because of its message, really, I guess. You know, whether you think it's simplistic or not, it could apply to any age. So that's really interesting, and some other interesting demos of God Save Us and Do the Oz, and a very interesting alternate mix of Happy Christmas, War Is Over without the strings and without the choir again. So Yoko is basically singing a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, that chorus bit. She's singing that on her own for the most part. And you can hear John's voice more clearly, you can hear the acoustic guitars more clearly. I'd forgotten that there were so many acoustic guitars on this Happy Christmas. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4. As well as John, there's 4 additional acoustic guitarists: Hugh McCracken, Chris Osborne, Teddy Irwin and Stuart Scharf. So that was interesting. So a really nice version of Happy Christmas. And then, you know, the mixes, the alternate mixes, rough takes of all the tracks are very interesting throughout everything which is on Spotify and everything which is in the box, I guess. And then perhaps most revealing are these mini documentaries. And also, sorry, before I talk about the mini documentaries, there's the rough studio mixes of all the tracks. So what appears to be the finished version of each track, but without strings. So for example, How, as the finished version without the strings. Same with How Do You Sleep, same with Jealous Guy. And same with all of them, really. I think the raw studio mixes are in there. And it's interesting to listen to those, but one always goes back to the finished album at the end of the day, and that's what I did yesterday after listening to all these outtakes. We decided to go back and listen to some of the final versions, and it's just glorious. And now I'm going to come to these documentaries, because there's a mini documentary on each track. And I guess that lasts no more than sort of 7 or 8, maybe 10 minutes max. But it's really interesting because it starts off with the first acoustic demo of the song, which may not bear too much resemblance to the finished version, and then it kind of has studio chat of John talking with the band, with Klaus and with Alan, the drummer, and then it builds up, and then really nicely mixed, so it's very listenable. So you're listening to an acoustic guitar maybe with the vocal, and then suddenly the bass comes in, or suddenly the drums come in. So whoever's done it, I can't remember, I haven't got time to look up the credits, but really nicely done in terms of a listening experience, and masterful, I would say. And each of the tracks is afforded this generous treatment, and I learned quite a lot, apart from the fact that John's mood during these sessions was not as downbeat or miserable as he was on the track How Do You Sleep, which again is a little bit of an oddity on this album, because most of the songs are warm and loving, and John's mood throughout the session seems to have been very happy and joyous. And even when he's laying down How Do You Sleep, he just says things like, "This is the nasty one," and try and make it nasty. But he's not being vindictive. There's no additional comments against Paul. It's just a funky track. And they've even mixed in some interviews with John talking about How Do You Sleep into these mini documentaries, into that one anyway. So that was my take on this Imagine release, very worthwhile for the fans. And if you have Spotify, I think it's a good as way as any to listen to it. Maybe I'll pick up the box one day if I see it going cheaper. But at the moment, I'm pretty happy with this double CD, with my multiple vinyl copies, and being able to listen to everything on Spotify. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.